You wash your hands 11 times a day. You wipe the counters. You scrub your kids until they squeak. Hand sanitizer lives in your car, your bag, your desk drawer, and yet the sniffles keep coming back. Meanwhile, the kid down the street who plays in mud puddles, pets every stray dog he meets, and hasn't washed behind his ears since Tuesday, he's the one laughing on the trampoline, allergy-free while you're reaching for a tissue. Something about this doesn't add up. You were taught that dirt is the enemy. But the real answer is far stranger than that. Your immune system was never built to live in a clean room. It was built in mud, in barns, in rivers, surrounded by parasites and bacteria and animal filth for nearly 200,000 years. And somewhere in the last century, you handed it a world so sterile it no longer knows what to do with itself. So it starts fighting things that were never actually dangerous. Pollen, peanuts, its own tissue. This isn't a flaw in your biology, it's a system starving for a job it was designed to do. Here's where it gets strange. In 1989, a British epidemiologist named David Strachan was digging through health records of over 17,000 children. He wasn't looking for anything dramatic. He was just trying to understand hay fever. But he noticed something odd. Kids from large families, especially those with more older siblings, had dramatically lower rates of allergies. The more crowded and chaotic the household, the healthier the immune system seemed to be. Strachan proposed something that sounded almost backwards at the time. Maybe getting sick more often, especially early in life, wasn't the problem. Maybe it was the solution. He called it the hygiene hypothesis, and it quietly rewired how scientists think about the immune system. Think about what your immune system actually is for a second. It's not a wall, it's a student. From the moment you're born, it has to learn the difference between friend and foe. And it can only learn that through exposure. Every sneeze, every scraped knee dragged through the yard, every mouthful of dirt you probably ate as a toddler without your parents knowing was a flashcard. Bacteria here, harmless, parasite there, manageable, pollen, not a threat, ignore it. Without those flashcards, the immune system graduates without ever taking the final exam. And then, later in life, when it finally meets something it should recognize, it panics instead. That panic looks like asthma. It looks like eczema. It looks like your body treating a peanut like a biological weapon. But it's not just about seeing more germs. This is where the story gets its real twist, and where a British immunologist named Graham Rook comes in. Rook noticed that Strachan's theory explained a pattern, but not a mechanism. Why would more siblings or more colds actually calibrate the immune system at a biological level? Rook proposed what he called the old friends hypothesis. The idea is that your immune system didn't evolve to tolerate germs in general. It evolved to tolerate a very specific cast of characters. Certain soil bacteria, certain intestinal worms, certain microbes that lived alongside humans for millions of years, long before agriculture, long before cities, long before soap. These weren't invaders. They were roommates. And over evolutionary time, your immune system built an entire regulatory system. Specialized cells called regulatory T cells, whose entire job is to stay calm around these old, familiar organisms. Remove the roommates, and the regulatory system has nothing to regulate. It doesn't relax. It doesn't have less to do. It becomes twitchy, overactive, and starts misfiring at things that were never dangerous in the first place. Your allergy to dust mites isn't really about dust mites. It's about the empty room your immune system was expecting to be full. This is why the healthiest immune systems on Earth right now don't belong to people in spotless homes. They belong to farm children. Specifically, there's a comparison that stunned researchers for years between two small religious farming communities in the United States, the Amish and the Hutterites. Genetically, they're remarkably similar. Both descend from small European populations. Both live in rural settings. Both raise large families with similar diets. But their asthma and allergy rates are wildly different. Amish children who grow up doing traditional farm work, walking through barns, drinking raw milk, living in close daily contact with cows and horses and the dust those animals kick up, have some of the lowest asthma rates ever recorded in American children. Hutterite children, who use large industrialized farm equipment and have far less direct animal contact, have asthma rates several times higher, closer to the national average. A researcher named Erica von Mutius spent years chasing exactly this pattern across European farming communities before this American comparison confirmed it again. Her studies on Bavarian and Austrian farm children found the same thing again and again. It wasn't just living in the countryside that mattered. It was direct, early, repeated contact with livestock, barns, and the specific microbial soup that comes with them. Children who drank unprocessed farm milk in their first year of life had lower rates of asthma and allergic disease than children who didn't, even within the same village. The dust in an Amish barn, it turns out, contains a cocktail of bacterial compounds called endotoxins, and researchers have shown that exposure to that exact dust in mouse studies blunts the kind of immune overreaction that leads to allergic airway disease. Ancient roommates, still doing their job, one barn at a time. So does this mean dirt itself is medicine? Not exactly, and this is the part that's easy to get wrong. It's not that mud is magic or that avoiding a shower makes you healthier. It's that a very specific ancient set of microbial relationships needs to be present early in life for your immune system's calibration system to develop properly. Modern hygiene didn't just remove danger, it accidentally removed the training data alongside it. Antibacterial soap doesn't know the difference between a genuinely dangerous pathogen and a 200,000-year-old roommate your immune system was counting on meeting. And the timeline backs this up in an unsettling way. Autoimmune diseases, allergic conditions, and inflammatory bowel disease have all risen sharply in wealthy, highly sanitized nations over the last 70 years, while staying comparatively rare in regions with less sanitation and more exposure to parasites and traditional farming. Multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, type 1 diabetes, peanut allergies, which were almost unheard of 2 generations ago and now affect roughly 1 in 50 children in the United States. None of these conditions have a single simple cause, but the pattern lines up too consistently to ignore. As homes got cleaner, immune systems got more confused. Here's the twist inside the twist. This isn't really a story about hygiene at all. It's a story about mismatch. Your body is running software that was optimized for an environment that no longer exists. For nearly all of human history, you would have spent your first year of life crawling on dirt floors, breathing in barn dust, and swapping microbes constantly with siblings, animals, and soil. Your immune system expected that world. It built its entire calibration process around that world. And then within the span of a few generations, that world vanished. Concrete floors, filtered air, pasteurized everything. Your biology didn't get the memo, so it's still bracing for an exposure that never comes. And when it finally does encounter something, anything, it overcorrects. You can see the modern mirror of this everywhere once you notice it. The rise of hand sanitizer stations in every doorway. The anxiety around letting toddlers put things in their mouths. Antibacterial everything, from soap to cutting boards to yoga mats. None of it is irrational. Nobody wants their child to get sick. But it's worth asking what your caution is actually protecting you from, and what it might be quietly costing you. Researchers now generally agree the goal isn't to abandon hygiene altogether. Washing your hands before surgery still matters. Clean water still saves lives, still one of the greatest public health achievements in human history. The nuance is that not all microbial exposure is equal, and the specific old friends your immune system evolved alongside are largely missing from sterile modern life. Not because you're too clean in general, but because entire categories of ancient exposure, soil, animals, unfiltered environments have quietly disappeared from how most people are raised. So the next time you see a kid eating something questionable off the ground, or a family with a dog, 3 cats, and a chaotic backyard garden, you might feel a flicker of judgment. Resist it. Their immune system might be getting an education yours never received. Yours might still be waiting for a lesson that was scheduled for early childhood and never showed up. You can't go back and rewrite your own training data, but you can stop assuming that spotless is the same thing as healthy. You still wash your hands 11 times a day. You still wipe the counters, but maybe the sniffles were never really about the germs you kept out. Maybe they were about the old friends you never let in.